Hey guys, it's Dulce. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be making small roses and rosebuds. But before we get into the video, I really wanted to suggest that you guys check out the community tab on the channel. We're going to be able to interact more on there, and I'm going to be posting some polls about what type of content you want to see next and maybe a little bit of behind the scenes. So make sure you go check that out. And without further ado, let's get into the video.
The first thing I'm going to do is make a hook on 26 gauge wire using small flat pliers. Then I'm taking a piece of floral tape and stretching it to activate the glue and wrapping my wire with it, starting at the end with the hook, going all the way down. Since I am making the rosebud and the small rose, I went ahead and did the same thing to a second wire so I would have it ready. So for the rosebud, we are going to grab a small piece of gum paste, knead it to soften it up, and then roll it into a rose cone. So this cone should be pretty thin. I measured it out using the petal cutter I was going to be making the petals with. So it should be about the same size or a little smaller than one of the petals of the cutter. I went ahead and dipped the hooked end of the wire into egg white, which is going to be acting as glue. You can also use edible glue if you want to, but I'm just using egg white. And then insert it into your cone and lightly press around it to make sure that it is actually sticking to your cone. Once you have your rose cone attached, go ahead and set it aside. You don't have to dry it for 48 hours or overnight, just because there isn't a lot of petals on it. There's not a lot of risk of your petals or your whole flower falling apart. You can if you want to, but you don't really have to. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to the petals. So I went ahead and rolled out a piece of gum paste and I cut out 3 sets of petals. They're all the same size, and I'm actually only going to be using one set for the rosebud and the other 2 are for the small rose. If you do cut out all 3 sets of petals at the same time, make sure you cover them with saran wrap just to make sure that they don't dry out, or you can put them in this petal board, which keeps them covered up. Either works. Now I'm just taking one of the sets of petals and using a ball tool to thin out the edges. Once you have all of your petals thinned out, you can go ahead and insert the wire into the center of your petal sets, and we are going to start putting the flower together. For the first petal, go ahead and put egg white all over the petal because that one's going to be mostly wrapped around the cone. Then I'm skipping one petal, going on to the next one. I'm putting egg white almost all the way up the petal, and I'm going to tuck it into the previous petal that I had put on the flower, and I'm leaving one side open. Skipping a petal again, doing the same thing, putting some egg white on there, and then tucking that petal into the previous one, and then just doing the same thing to the last 2 petals. It's easier to see it than for me to try to explain it, so you can guide yourself with the video better. Once you have glued all of your petals to your cone, go ahead and either leave them pretty closed or you can open them up a little bit more. Just depends on what type of movement you want to give the flower. I went ahead and showed you how it looks if I leave the flower kind of closed. Then all I did was go ahead and open up the petals a little bit more to give it more movement. Once you're happy with how your flower looks, go ahead and set it aside and let it dry overnight. And we're going to be moving on to the small rose. For the small rose, I went ahead and kneaded a small piece of gum paste again, and this one's a little bit bigger than the other one, and you can do the same thing, measure out the size by using the cutter that I cut out the petals with. Then I dipped the hooked end of the wire into egg white and inserted it into my cone, and I lightly pressed around it to make sure that it was adhered to the wire. I went ahead and took my first set of petals and used the ball tool to thin them out, and I'm using the same procedure that I used with the Rosebud. It's always a little better for you to see what I'm actually doing instead of me trying to explain it, so just go ahead and watch the video and you'll be able to understand it a little better, because it might get a little confusing if I try to explain it. I almost forgot to remind you guys that all of the tools that I'm going to be using are in the description box below. I have links to most of the tools and stuff that I use in case you guys are curious or want to purchase any of it for yourself. I also wanted to remind you guys that I do have a tutorial on a bigger rose. If you wanted to watch that tutorial, I'll leave it in the info card at the top right of the screen, so you can go ahead and go watch that one once you're done watching this video. It's always nice to know how to make a variety of sizes of roses for when you're making arrangements and things like that. It's better to have a variety and have some dimension to your arrangement instead of just having a lot of small or a lot of big flowers. So go ahead and go check that out if you're interested in that video. It'll be in that little card at the top right corner of the screen. once you're done gluing all of your petals to your flower, go ahead and move the petals around. Just give it some movement and arrange the petals to your liking. And this is how your flower should look. And those are both of the flower and the little rosebud together, so you can see how those look. And we're going to move on to the last step, which is making the calyx for both of them. For the calyx, all I'm going to do is roll out a small piece of green gum paste. Then I'm taking my calyx cutter, which kind of looks like a little star, and cutting out 2 of them. I went ahead and put them both on a foam board and used the Dresden tool to stretch out the little corners. Then I put some egg white in the center of the calyx, slid it up the wire of each flower, and pressed it down a little bit to make sure that it adhered to the flower. And this is how your finished flower should look.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Please make sure to give it a like, subscribe, and leave a comment in the comment sections down below telling me what type of videos you want to see next. Make sure to also hit the bell icon next to the subscribe button to be notified of when I post new videos, and share this video with all of your friends so they can be part of our little cake decorating family. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!